If the Great Deluge is only a myth, why are there so many flood stories told by so many different cultures from around the world? Let's examine 6 of the most well-documented here. The Mesopotamian flood myth is one of the oldest and most well-known flood myths in the world, and is recounted in the Epic of Gilgamesh, an epic poem that dates back to the 3rd millennium BC. According to the myth, the gods had become unhappy with humanity's corruption and decided to destroy the world with a great flood. The god Enlil sent a flood to destroy all life on earth, but the god Ea warned a man named Utnapishtim of the impending disaster, and instructed him to build an ark and take with him his family, craftsmen, and animals. Utnapishtim built the ark according to Ea's instructions, and when the flood came, he and his companions were saved. After the flood waters receded, Utnapishtim released a dove and a swallow to see if there was any dry land, but they returned to the ark. Finally, he released a raven, which did not return, indicating that there was dry land. Utnapishtim then landed the ark on the top of a mountain, and made a sacrifice to the gods. The god Enlil was angry that some humans had survived, but the god Ea convinced him to show mercy, and Utnapishtim and his companions were granted eternal life. The Hindu flood myth, known as the Great Deluge, is part of the ancient Indian epic poem, the Mahabharata. The story tells of a time when the world was in a state of moral decline, and the god Vishnu decided to cleanse the earth with a great flood. The flood was predicted by the sage Manu, who was instructed by Vishnu to build a boat and take with him his family and all the species of animals, both male and female, that existed on earth. According to the myth, Manu built the boat and boarded it with his family and the animals. As the floodwaters rose, the boat was buffeted by the waves and battered by the wind. But eventually, the floodwaters receded, and the boat came to rest on the top of a mountain. When the floodwaters receded, Manu and his family left the boat and set about repopulating the earth. The myth explains that the flood was a punishment for humanity's sins, but also a way for the world to be reborn and renewed. The ancient Greek flood myth is recounted in the Catalogues of Women, a poem by the Greek poet Hesiod that dates back to the 8th century BC. According to the story, Zeus, the king of the gods, was angry with humanity for their wickedness, and decided to destroy the world with a great flood. Zeus sent a deluge that lasted for 9 days and 9 nights, and the entire world was submerged underwater. The only survivor of the flood was a man named Deucalion, who had been warned of the impending disaster by his father, Prometheus. Deucalion and his wife Pyrrha built an ark and took refuge in it, along with a pair of each species of animal. When the floodwaters receded, Deucalion and Pyrrha emerged from the ark and set about repopulating the world. They consulted with an oracle, who told them to throw stones behind them as they walked, and wherever the stones landed, a new person would be born. Deucalion threw stones, and men were born, while Pyrrha threw stones, and women were born. The Chinese flood myth tells the story of a catastrophic flood that nearly destroyed the world, and the goddess Nuwa who saved humanity from complete annihilation. According to the myth, the world was a chaotic and dangerous place before Noah intervened. The sky and earth were not properly aligned, and disasters were common. Nuwa was a goddess who had the power to create and repair things, and she was greatly respected by the people. One day, the gods in the heavens became angry with humanity, and decided to destroy the world with a massive flood. The flood lasted for years, and everything on the earth was submerged in water, including the people, animals, and even the mountains. Only a few people and animals were able to survive by taking refuge in boats, or on high mountains. Noah saw the devastation and decided to take action. She melted 5 colored stones, and used them to patch up the hole in the sky. She then chopped off the legs of a giant turtle, and used them to prop up the 4 corners of the sky. The floodwaters began to recede, and the land was once again habitable. Noah then created new humans from mud and breathed life into them, thus repopulating the earth. The myth highlights the power of the gods and goddesses, as well as the importance of balance and harmony in the natural world. Noah is often seen as a symbol of creativity and ingenuity, and is revered in Chinese culture as a goddess of creation and repair. Native American flood myths are found among many different tribes and cultures across the Americas. These stories vary in their details, but they share certain common elements. One such common element is the idea that a great flood was sent by the gods as a punishment for the sins of humanity. According to some versions of the myths, the flood was caused by the actions of a mischievous or malevolent deity, who was later punished for his or her actions. Another common element is the idea that certain animals or people were able to survive the flood, either by building boats or by climbing to high ground. These survivors were seen as the ancestors of the new human race that emerged after the floodwaters receded. One well-known Native American flood myth comes from the Zuni people of the southwestern United States. According to this myth, the world was destroyed by a great flood that was caused by a serpent who lived in the ocean. The only survivors were a brother and sister who were able to escape in a hollow log. They eventually landed on a mountaintop, where they planted a tree that grew into the first corn plant. Another Native American flood myth comes from the Cherokees of the southeastern United States. According to this myth, the world was destroyed by a great flood that was sent by the gods. The only survivors were a man and woman who were warned of the impending disaster by a friendly bird. They were able to survive the flood by building a raft, and they eventually landed on a mountaintop, where they started a new life and repopulate the earth. The story of Noah and the Great Flood is a well-known example of a flood myth that appears in the Bible, and is widely known in many cultures around the world. According to the book of Genesis in the Old Testament of the Bible, God was unhappy with the wickedness of humanity, and decided to destroy the world with a great flood. He instructed Noah, a righteous man, to build an ark and take with him his family and pairs of all living creatures, both animals and birds. The ark was built according to God's instructions, and when the flood came, Noah, his family, and the animals were saved inside the ark. After 40 days and 40 nights of rain, the flood waters receded, and the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Noah then released a dove to see if the waters had receded, and eventually, the dove returned with an olive branch, signaling that the land was dry. Noah and his family then left the ark and repopulate the earth. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe. We are on YouTube and TikTok under the name Ancient Arcana. As a new channel, we want to say thank you for giving us your precious time. We hoped you were entertained. Please feel free to add to the story or provide tips on how we can get better in the comments. Cheers!